The Rundown with Carrie Saldo podcast is funded by Armbrook Village Senior Living in Westfield, with support services designed to help seniors age in place, including a Compass Memory Support Neighborhood. More at armbrookvillage.com.
This is The Rundown, your weekly news and review from Western Mass. Good morning. I am Carrie Saldo. It's Friday, July 5th. Happy post-4th of July, everybody. Joining me to celebrate this week's news sparklers from the westernmost part of the state, Alexa Lewis, a reporter with the Daily Hampshire Gazette, NEPM reporter Nancy Eve Cohen,
Good morning,
and Evan Garber, senior consultant with A.L. Signoli Company. Welcome to all of you. And in just a minute, we will discuss the latest efforts to bring broadband internet to those without it in Western Massachusetts and statewide. Yes, that's right, without broadband internet in 2024. You heard me correct. Later in the show, I'll ask our panelists how they plan to spend their summer vacations. You at home should definitely tell us your plans too. Email us your favorite summer hotspots, The Rundown at nepm.org. That's The Rundown at nepm.org. But first, Evan Garber, you may have heard there was a debate last week. President Joe Biden, I think perhaps a word could be used, lackluster performance. Last evening there, Thursday night, the debate with former President Donald Trump. And since then, multiple national news publications and at least one sitting Democrat have called for President Biden to drop out of the 2024 presidential race. And that Democrat was Texas Democrat Representative Lloyd Doggett, who said, according to the Associated Press, quote, "President Biden's first commitment has always been to our country, not himself. I am hopeful that he will make the painful and difficult decision to withdraw. I respectfully call on him to do so." Evan Garber, with President Biden, what's going on here? You think he's going to withdraw from the 2024 presidential race?
Well, I think that, painful and difficult definitely describes the news cycle that President Biden and his team has had to deal with. It's been the worst of his presidency. We thought Afghanistan was, but this kind of blows that out of proportion in the negative press he's gotten. And we've seen Trump be pretty quiet to kind of just let him stumble through it. We've also seen Massachusetts Congressman Seth Moulton call on Joe Biden to withdraw from the race on the 4th of July. He did that. So I think we've seen kind of a few here and there mid-level kind of congressmen say these things, but the still whole of the Democratic Party have done an incredible job to try to stay united, even in the face of all this panic publicly. You know, they've some of the major people who might be seen to maybe take over for President Biden, Vice President Harris, California Governor Gavin Newsom have really stayed. Like, he's our guy. This is what we're doing, because at the end of the day, it's his decision, and we'll have to see, the decision that he makes. But right now, it's been he's going for it tonight. He'll do
George
an interview,
Stephanopoulos.
yes, on ABC with George, and that'll be really what he's been trying to do since day one of his campaign: convince the people that he could do this, and they hoped that he'd be able to get around that by having a strong debate performance. That did not happen, and Democrats were already scared of a 1968-like convention in Chicago with everything that's been happening. Their lackluster response in the face of their base to the war in Gaza. They were worried about that, but I think this is going to exacerbate that worry even more.
Yeah,
Nancy?
you mentioned the Democratic Convention in 1968. There's a lot's been written in the last few days after the debate about some history, which is Lyndon B. Johnson was the president, and he famously spoke from the Oval Office in March 1968, and he said he would not seek and would not accept his party's nomination for the presidency of the United States. And what was going on for him was different than what's going on now, which is the chiefs of staff had asked for a 40% increase in the number of troops in Vietnam, which was huge, and would have meant many more people being drafted. And that was leaked, and his other candidates like Eugene McCarthy, an anti-war candidate, started to do much better. Robert F. Kennedy, Senator Robert F. Kennedy, stepped into the race.
The independent who's running here in this cycle.
No.
Oh, different.
Senator Robert F. Kennedy, who was assassinated.
No, I'm saying,
then.
but related to.
Oh, yes, I guess you could do that. Yes. I hadn't, yes. But anyway, Humphrey went on. Hubert Humphrey was chosen by the convention, and there were huge, anti-war protests, anti-Humphrey protests outside. There was a lot of police heavy-handedness, let's say, or brutality even during those protests. And so I don't know if there's a lot of comparisons to today, except that both presidents are facing difficult times.
What's coming to mind for me with all of this is sort of the tragic reality that I'm watching unfold here. Neither major party candidates said, or both said during the debate, neither really wanted to run. Right. So this is like the worst game of monkey see, monkey do ever. It's kind of maddening because I feel like these two folks have stepped up and said they're justifying their candidacy based on their fear of the other winning. And for me, fear-based leadership, it's not inspiring. And I think that the American people deserve better.
And the only candidate that wants to be running is the candidate who has just been losing and losing and losing, which is the current candidate in the race. I think the biggest
Kennedy I refer to.
Yes, I think the biggest loser from the debate and from this recent weeks has been the current Kennedy because he's lost ground. You'd think that he would really be trying to pick up some of this. Some of these people who are fleeing from Biden, some of the donors maybe even, but he really has not been able to capitalize on this.
Well, more to come on this, but I'm going to move us on to Western Mass news. Many more people in Western Mass are about to become better connected to the world via the broadband internet. And yes, there are thousands of people in the 413 area code without it. More on that in a moment. Namu Senpath reported on this for The Republican, and the headline on this one, Healy administration awards $45 million grant to extend broadband infrastructure. Quoting here, 4 internet providers, Comcast, Greenfield Community Energy and Technology, Spectrum Northeast, and Verizon New England were awarded the grant as part of the state's broadband infrastructure GAP Networks program, which will install high-speed internet lines to about 2,000 locations in 41 Massachusetts communities that lack access to broadband connection. This funding is part of a process to address the digital divide across the state and make the internet more equitable. Looking specifically at some of the Western Mass communities that'll be helped, according to the story, Greenfield, Florida, Howley, Monroe, Savoy, Amherst, Bernardston, Chicopee, Deerfield, Holyoke, and even some people in Springfield, if you can believe it. Quick backstory here. Nancy, you might remember, I certainly remember very well, when Governor Deval Patrick in 2007 was in Beckett in the Berkshires with a promise of this information-aged equity, broadband access for all. By 2011, we are now in 2024, and we still aren't there. How is this impacting folks in Berkshire County?
Well, there are many places in Berkshire County that either are underserved or not served. There's something also going on. That $45 million that Healy announced the other day that was in this article is part of a bigger bucket of money, $147 million, that's being given to Massachusetts, or will be, from a national agency, the National Telecommunications and Information Administration. And they are right now running a challenge that they're calling it a challenge that hasn't gotten a lot of publicity. It's called the Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Challenge Process, or BEAD, and it's asking people in all parts of Massachusetts, but especially places where they're underserved or not served, to do on 3 different days, take a speed test of their internet and report it through an online process. Some people are calling it a census of the internet. And once it's to figure out exactly what are the upload and download speeds in different places. They have a map, you can click on it. And I went to various websites to see who's actually letting people know about it, because people really do not know about it, I think. And I saw Sheffield is doing a big job on that. Clarksburg and Whately, I noticed.
Among some of the smaller communities. Alexa, I know for you're covering East Hampton quite a bit for the Daily Hampshire Gazette.
Yeah.
They're next leveling stuff. They're going right for fiber. What's going on there?
East Hampton is currently working on submitting a BEAD challenge as well. I know Massachusetts is kind of in their challenge period, so they have been encouraging people to test their internet access and their broadband. But East Hampton has been going for a really big fiber optic push. They're partnering with GoNet Speed to bring kind of an alternative to broadband and other kinds of internet to the area, to both residents and businesses. And they're also still kind of working on finalizing some municipal connections. I know one recent grant that they got that I thought was kind of cool is they're bringing fiber optic connections to their water department infrastructure so they can remotely kind of watch what's happening in their water tanks and monitor the quality.
Real-time efforts there.
Yeah, they can check for emergencies without actually physically sending someone out there so people can have some faster response times. And that's still in the works. I know when I spoke with some people at the water department, they're still working on actually developing the software that goes along with that makes it work, but they're laying the fiber. And then they're also, I think, a big thing is going to be trying to connect to Southampton with the fiber optics because they share a dispatch center.
And fiber optics all along has been where this is going. I mean, connections at the speed of light through those efforts. And I know specifically in the Berkshires, I remember from my reporting there, way back when there was all this jostling about should a big company do it? Should this be a small localized effort? How should we get to do this? Geography, we know, plays such a huge role in this broadband issue because one of the beautiful parts of our area is the rural nature. You're nice and spread out. That is horrific for internet because big companies and even small companies, there's not a huge incentive to lay those connections between these big expanses. Just the bang for the buck isn't there. So it's part of what's complicating this when we saw Governor Deval Patrick declare this will be done by 2011. Evan, I was thinking about, is it a lack of political will or is it the geography getting away? Do you think it's a mix of both? What do you think?
I think there's a mix of both, but I also think with the geography, any list that is talking about a problem in our area that has Florida, Amherst, and Chicopee on it.
And Springfield.
This is obviously a big problem, and it needs big solutions, and it's going to cost a lot of money. And obviously, municipalities need to be really careful and good stewards of their taxpayer money. But like the Big Dig, I'm listening to this podcast about the Big Dig, and it costs so much money, but, at the end of the day, sometimes municipal projects need to put that upfront investment to better the lives of the people.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch where this goes. Nancy, do you have something you wanted to add?
I just want to add that this challenge where they're asking people to upload their speeds is over July 20th. Small window to do it. And just one more thing.
Sure.
When you don't have access to internet, you don't always know. You may not be as familiar with how to be online, and there's a lot of digital inequities that affect people who are applying for jobs, and it disproportionately affects lower income people with limited English, people with mental, developmental, and intellectual disabilities, according to the Digital Equity Alliance based here in Western Massachusetts.
Yeah, really, really important point. Thank you, Nancy. Alexa, I'm going to move us on to something you reported on the Daily Hampshire Gazette. Feds eye flood mitigation measures in the Pioneer Valley. You and Chris Larrabee did this reporting. What caught your attention about this?
So there's the Water Resources Development Act, which is this biannual kind of legislative package that just got approved in the Senate Environment and Public Works Committee in May. Now it's kind of moving through the House for approval. But one of the big important parts of this year's WRDA Act was that there were some big wins for Western Massachusetts included in there, and one of the kind of most exciting things in the wake of the 2023 flooding is that there's an Army Corps of Engineers feasibility study coming to the Connecticut River. So it's going to kind of look at the river all throughout Western Mass and see kind of some projects that can be done in the future to help. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of details on what that study is going to look like yet. We reached
Still
out to
in the learning phase.
Yeah, we reached out to the regional Army Corps office, and they kind of said, since it hasn't officially passed yet, we can't share that much with you, which makes sense. But there's also some kind of more local things going on. So East Hampton, one of the areas that I cover, is getting $10 million in environmental infrastructure assistance to kind of upgrade and replace part of their wastewater outflow system. So there's this outflow pipe that goes into the Connecticut River from their wastewater treatment plant. Most of their water infrastructure is very old. They've been working on replacing a lot of it, so this is kind of a small piece, and this funding is going to help them kind of offset the design and construction costs. When I spoke to their Department of Public Works, they were saying that they're definitely going to need more money for the rest of the project, but that this is really helpful and kind of a big part of it.
The flooding that we've seen in this region in recent years has been so extensive. I mean, it's called attention to legislators. Legislators have come out to the region. Evan, what's sticking out for you?
Yeah, I think that last summer, one of the amazing things that happened was our local delegation really banded together. I mean, Senator Comerford brought the state Senate president out, and they did that announcement in a farm at East Hampton. And just to show the commitment, I mean, it was so hot that day. People fainted at that announcement.
Yeah.
But it was just that level of intensity of we need to fix this and we need solutions now. And the money that was brought in, they didn't give farmers loans. They gave them cash. Here, take this. We know that you need this money. And, some people said, and I think it's a very valid concern, is that a lot of things, coming out of COVID, we had a lot of momentum with some extra funding and things, and maybe some of that attention was shifted to focus on the flooding. I think some projects kind of got tripped up because all the attention was on that, and obviously it's a huge issue, but it is important that, we were just talking about with the broadband, there's so many other issues in the area that we got to divide the focus and work it out on all of them. And
just quickly before we head to break, not to be underscored, the impact that this has on farmers, their mental health. The Daily Hampshire Gazette had a story that these outsized challenges that we're facing climate impact so much more our food system, but also the mental health of those farmers. So if you're people out there who are farming and you need that support, it is certainly available to you. All right, we're going to head to the break, and the Rundown is going to return here with our panel. We are going to be discussing summer fun. We're going to be discussing outdoor accessibility. Stay with us.
How long is the break?
Welcome back to the Rundown. I'm Carrie Saldo, delving into the week's news highlights from Western Mass with Alexa Lewis, Evan Garber, and Nancy Eve Cohen. Nancy, let me turn to you. A story you recently reported for NEPM, the headline, Outdoor Enthusiasts Who Have Disabilities Being Active Outside Changes Everything. What got you thinking about this topic?
What got me thinking about it? I guess I actually started thinking about it because of somebody in my family. But I will just tell you, I think anybody, in my opinion, I'm spouting an opinion here.
Go for it.
But I think it might be true. I think when we spend time outdoors and when we're active outdoors, it makes us feel good for a variety of reasons. And so I think that's true across the board for everybody. For people
Absolutely.
who have medical conditions that makes it difficult for them to walk or to navigate the outdoors, I reported on opportunities for them and things they've done to be out in the world outside. For example, I met a woman who has MS. She's from Greenfield. She rows on the Connecticut River through an organization called Holyoke Rows, which does a big job of helping people who have disabilities get out on the river.
And we actually have a cut from Joanna Whitney. Let's hear from her.
It's really something that speaks to what I can do. Not so much about the things that are difficult for me. And the staff here assume that, if I think I can do it, I probably can.
I love that. You can hear her out there on the river. The staff that she referred to, Nancy, there are folks there from Holyoke Rows, which they run this adaptive programming,
yes,
right? So
yes.
What's involved in that?
It's funded by the state. In this particular case, the boat is set up in a way where there are pontoons on either side to keep it from being very tippy. They've got this special seat that's actually a race car seat that gives more support. Usually a seat in a scull slides back and forth. This woman propels herself across the water using her arms and her trunk. She's done as much as 14 kilometers, she told me.
Amazing.
And she talked about how it builds her confidence, etc. I also spoke with somebody named Amy Sugihara, who's the chair of the Northampton Disabilities Commission. And I went with her when she was playing pickleball. And she said it is both grounding and uplifting. And it has made a huge difference in her life.
And despite the fact that these folks are getting outside, there's still a lot of work to be done to make it equitable. And in your piece, we also heard from Northampton landscape artist Meg Bandara, who was at the Fort River Birding and Nature Trail in Hadley. Here's what she said.
These trails change lives. When it comes to access to nature for everyone, our current trail system in Massachusetts unfortunately falls short.
Nancy, what needs to change to make trails like Fort River and others more accessible?
Well, I'm not sure that the need is to make that particular trail more accessible, because it is.
Oh, thank you.
But I think what people are looking for are more trails and longer trails. These trails are not paved, all right? There's less incline. They're a little bit flatter. They have some sort of small guardrails on the side, and there's not a lot of obstruction. So it's really very natural. And Senator Joe Comerford, along with Meg Bandera, whose tape you just played, Meg Bandera really pushed for it. Senator Joe Comerford proposed it. It's a bill called Trails for All, the Trails for All Act. It's being considered by lawmakers. Right now, it's got as far as the Senate Ways and Means Committee so far. And what it will do is it will lead to basically figuring out what do we have in the state and where is there money to do something more.
Yeah, this really got me thinking about the Americans with Disabilities Act, and I looked it up. President George Bush Sr. passed it in 1990. It was the world's first comprehensive civil rights law for people with disabilities. Nancy's reporting spoke to statewide efforts and changes we're trying to make here, but whether state or federal, Evan, that passed in 1990. Did you think we would be further along in these efforts?
Absolutely. In my undergrad time at UMass in Amherst, I did some education studies and found that within their special education department, we would do things like go around campus and find places that aren't accessible. And you'd think, oh, it's a public university, everything, and it would be accessible. And it's amazing how many things are just not up to code. And we have so many, Massachusetts being a historic state, we have so many historical exceptions, which, is good in the way that they keep these historic places as they were, but also limits to what people can do. And I think what Nancy brought up about making the trails longer, there's some great trails like at the Fitzgerald Lake Conservation Area in Florence or Northampton. There's some great areas there that are accessible, but it's just not long enough.
There are groups, not only Holyoke Rose, but there's a group, All Out Adventures. It's based in Northampton. It does hundreds of programs across the state, not just in this area. The state DCR, Department of Conservation and Recreation, funds these programs. There's also a program in Springfield. And one of the things that people pointed out to me that they do is they help, but they don't help if you don't want help. And I think that's really important for people who, have disabilities. And it really, I was also told it really builds confidence in terms of not only when you're doing the sport, when you're on the court or on the trail or on the river, but the rest of your life, it ripples out. It gives a sense of agency. It seems really important. It
was really eye-opening to read in your piece. I think it was Joanna Whitney who pointed this out, that just the need to really see what her body is capable of doing. And you got to leave room for that, right? Like I, as an able-bodied person, sometimes look at people and think like, oh, I should reach out and help. And it really gave me this perspective to understand, like, no, if someone wants help, maybe they'll ask me for it, be there, be willing, but really take the cue from someone else, right?
Yeah, I learned that as well.
Yeah. All right. Well, Nancy's story got us all thinking about outside. It is summer and a fantastic time to be doing this. So, in this spirit of summer fun, as my husband reminds me all the time, we can have fun and get things done. It's the constant challenge in our marriage. There's a Massachusetts day trip guide, which you can find on nepm.org. The headline: Hikes, History, Ice Cream, and Unofficial Hot Dog Tours. This reporting care of our own Jill Kaufman and some of our friends at WBUR, Megan McGinnis and Roberto Scalise. There's so much fun to do in not only the 413, but across Massachusetts. This is an inspirational 4-part primer where you can click on Cape Cod and the Islands, Central Massachusetts, Eastern Massachusetts, and right here in the 413. Alexa, I know you're new to the region, a couple months here, so welcome. Did you have a chance to look at this guide? Anything that you're dying to do first?
I did, yeah. I have had a chance to check out several of the rail trails that were mentioned on there. I'm into running, so the Manhan Rail Trail in East Hampton has been a really cool one for me. I just love being like kind of out in nature, away from people and cars, and able to run out there. I love that it mentioned some local bookshops because I love bookstores. I could spend hours in one. I used to work at the Crow bookshop up in Burlington, Vermont on Church Street, which is kind of like an unofficial sister shop to the Raven down in Northampton.
Yeah.
We have like the exact same sign outside. We always get asked if it was affiliated.
What a cool connection between the two communities.
Yeah, right. When I first moved down here, they were like, "Are you going to go work at the Raven now?" No, but I do spend quite some time there. So there were some other shops on that list I definitely need to check out.
Absolutely fabulous that you flagged that because just because it's the summer, not everyone likes to spend their time outside. Evan, what are you looking forward to?
I think that Massachusetts, for such a small state, just has incredible range. I mean, you could go see John Williams on the lawn at Tanglewood for $32, and then you could go across the state and be on a beautiful beach. I mean, there's just so much range, and I'm looking forward to some Hadley corn on the grill. I love that, and all of the great things that we can't do, like cooking outside in the winter. You
could do it. It is
right.
not enjoyable.
Yeah, there's just so many great things, and yeah, I'm so glad that you mentioned the Manhan Rail Trail. It's just a great way to get out. People on their bikes, people in wheelchairs, people running, people doing from all walks of life coming to the rail trail and using it and recreating. It's just a great asset to the community.
Nancy, how about for you? Outside, inside, beach, mountains?
Yesterday I biked 20 miles.
Wow.
Which for bicyclists is very small, by the way, I have to say.
But on the 4th of July.
It's impressive for me.
Northampton, Belchertown, back on the rail trail. Also love getting to beaches. Rhode Island, North Shore of Boston. It's really easy, and it's so nice to be around the ocean.
I'm a cultural institutions kind of gal. Grew up in and around the Berkshires, and I have to say, I'm not supposed to pick my favorite child, but I will here. It's Jacob's Pillow. I spend the bulk of my summer there, whether it's community classes, outdoor performances. They have inside, outside, range of ticket options and prices. It's a huge favorite of mine.
They're offering some dance classes for free.
Oh,
also.
Great. See, even better. It's a love letter to the pillow. One thing I want to flag that didn't make this list: a shout out for Rondo's Dairy Bar in Palmer. They're family owned. They make their own ice cream. It is a summer fun spot that we hit again and again, way too many times in my family. And I love their sign outside. It says soft serve, never have, never will. It's only hard scoop ice cream there. So fantastic. Well, you can find more inspiration for your summer fun and fun. Take it throughout the year. I feel like it could be a checklist you can keep with you. nepm.org for that one. I'm going to move us on to our predictions, scoop, and praise portion of the show, where we ask our panel to do something sometimes against their very nature, make a prediction about the news, dish about a story they're working on, or heap some praise on a newsworthy nugget that needs to be trumpeted. Alexa, scoop, prediction, praise, what are you thinking?
I'm working on a story right now that I'm pretty excited about because it's about kind of a huge issue nationally and especially in Massachusetts, and it's affordable housing. We've done a lot of coverage of individual kind of housing projects throughout our coverage area at the Gazette, but we haven't done anything yet that kind of brings together all of the big projects and lets people know what's in the work and kind of the context of the massive need that there is here. So this story is going to kind of bring together all of the projects that are happening, a lot in East Hampton, some in Holyoke, Amherst, a couple others in other areas. I've been talking with some developers of these projects, some housing advocates. It's, I think, going to be... Yeah.
We'll definitely be looking for that. And real quick, Evan Garber.
Yeah, I've been working with City Space, which is a great nonprofit in East Hampton, and they're just trying to get their fair share from Boston.
Terrific. Nancy.
I had a great opportunity. I interviewed Marty Barron, now retired longtime journalist, about his new book, Collision of Power. He was the executive editor at the Washington Post when Trump was in office, and he was the editor at the Boston Globe when they broke the Boston Archdiocese investigation.
Be on the lookout for that.
So
our
that's
thanks
next
to our
week.
panel. This is the rundown for Friday. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.